Our tummies are like, hello. They have things to say about Colleen Hoover.
Truly.
Bad. Colleen Hoover gives me digestive issues.
That's true.
Done.
Wow, you did it.
Hello!
Hello! Welcome back to Crows Before Bros. I'm Randy.
I'm Lauren.
This week is a spicy week.
For my birthday, I get to yell about some books that I don't like.
Your birthday's in 2 weeks.
Whatever. It's birthday season, baby. You can't stop me.
Are you a
You can't
Pisces?
stop me. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I seem like a Pisces? I don't know. I don't know anything. It's a fish, right?
Yeah, they're like fish.
What have you been reading?
I started Finlay Donovan and then I stopped it again for the third time. I just can't get excited. I don't know. Beyond that, I've been playing lots of Persona 5. I've been picking up Stardew again since you started. Beyond that, I've started Conjuring of Light finally, and I've been reading a little bit of all the young dudes again. Yeah, what about you?
For reading, I, not too long ago, finished up Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, as well as finished up some Christmas reads and stuff. I've also been playing a lot of Stardew Valley, which has been so soothing and just what I needed. So yeah, that's pretty much my life right now.
Yeah. This week, we're gonna talk about a very spicy author.
Controversy City!
Yeah.
Our episode where we tackle an author who absolutely dominates the New
Yeah.
York Times bestseller list.
Yeah. You walk into a
Works.
chapter, she's there. She haunts me everywhere I go.
You say coho, I say no-ho!
So we're gonna be talking about Colleen Hoover today. I want to start with like a bit of a caveat. Colleen Hoover's a love it or hate it kind of author. People are very passionate on either side. Frankly, if you're very pro Colleen Hoover, this might not be the video for you. We've both like struggled with her a lot, so and that's fine. Reading be that way.
Reading be that way.
Reading be that way.
If you're a real big Colleen Hoover fan, this is nothing personal.
Yeah. Read your books. Enjoy
Yeah.
your books.
If this is like what you really like to read, we have three. We decided to take
Mega.
a litmus test of 3 Colleen Hoover books today.
In like 3 different genres, 3 different types of Colleen Hoover books, I would say.
I think I've really given her a fair shake.
We tried.
We tried.
We tried.
We sure did.
At what cost? A note before we get too far into really any of these, there is every content warning on earth for every Colleen Hoover book. There is like domestic abuse, there's sexual assault, there's graphic death. Like literally, she doesn't put content warnings in her books. And she actively is like, I will not do that.
No, yeah, she actively makes a lot of money on all of the triggers.
We're gonna start with It Ends With Us. Stop! Okay, It Ends With Us is 384 pages long. It is a contemporary fiction novel. It is not a romance. It Ends With Us follows the main character Lily, and we essentially just follow the progression of her relationship with this Dr. Ryle. In her perspective, it starts off like well-meaning enough. They have a connection, she decides to pursue it. He's kind of like, I don't want a relationship. And she's like, I do. And then they kind of like fall into this relationship. We have dual timeline. Current timeline, we're following this relationship. She's deciding that she's like trying to get some closure from her past with like a ex-boyfriend and her family history of domestic assault. And she decides she's gonna do this by looking back at her diary entries from when she was younger. The dual timeline is told through these diary entries. In the diary entries, we see just terrible relationship between her parents. We also see her fall in love with the homeless boy in the shack across the way, Atlas, and kind of take him in, they fall in love. In the current, we see Ryle and Lily's relationship really take a turn for the worse. You see a lot of the starting and eventual like follow through of domestic abuse. At the same time, she runs into her old flame, Atlas. He's stepping in. He's like, no, you don't deserve this. You deserve better. She becomes pregnant with Ryle's kid. That's when she's kind of like, okay, enough is enough. So she like takes a stand for herself, and that's kind of how the book ends, with Atlas also being like, if you ever have it in your heart to love me again, I'd love that. Again, this is not a romance book.
Not at all.
It should have never been marketed as a romance book. Of the 3 books they're talking about, this is the one that I hate the least because I think it's the most like kind of cohesive story. I think it does a good job of showing how people might fall into this situation. Even if you think like, I'm aware of this, I'm not going to give way to being in a relationship like this. It shows like, no, it's like little things that build up. I think that's the best, but this is the book that maybe makes me the angriest because of the marketing, because of how people talk about it as a romance book. Literally making a romance book companion to this book, selling it as a coloring book.
She's backpedaled on that now.
Yes.
I honestly don't know how such a popular author like got through. Who was her PR team?
Yeah.
That like nobody was like, hey, have you considered that this is like not a very good idea? Sign me up for that PR team, the money, but like also, how did nobody catch that?
When you read it as a reader, Ryle walks in and you're like, whoa, red flag.
Yeah. He's throwing a chair.
Yeah, well, he's throwing a chair.
That's like the first thing he does.
He walks
she
out.
sees him on the roof. He flies off the handle with rage. Like that's the very first thing she witnesses of him, and she's like, well, a doctor. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. But I also think of like all my friends who have seen punch a hole through a wall. And it's like, you know, you're like, oh, that was a crappy thing to do, but maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt and whatever, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Ryan Atwood in the OC vibe where you're like, oh, he's just like misunderstood. And
sure. I know everything about the OC. I've definitely watched it. It starts with the chair, and then like chapter 2, he's like, have sex with me. And she's like,
literally on his knees. He's like holding onto her legs, and he's like, do
But she's like, no. And he pushes and pushes and pushes until she's like, fine.
Isn't that romantic? Like just like wearing people down.
Aggressively non-consensual. That's how the relationship starts. Again, I can see if you're like raised in a family where domestic assault is a thing, you might be like, oh, he's just like really showing his love for me. He's really trying to like woo me, right? If you don't have a sense of what's healthy, then you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. There's a level in this one where I'm like, see what we're going for, but I have so many complaints. It's not even necessarily about like him being a red flag or the whole like I can fix him, because I see that in this book is like the point of the story. This is how somebody ends up in the situation. They needed people around them to stop them and be like, this is not okay. Awesome. Shouldn't have been marketed as a romance. Shouldn't have had like all this other stuff tied to it. Aside from that, the writing is bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And the dual timeline. Why is she writing to Ellen DeGeneres instead of just a traditional diary, like a normal pedestrian girl? I'm gonna write to Ellen.
I'm not like other girls. I write to Ellen.
Just keep swimming.
My issue is that there's then no development between her writing at 15 and her writing at like 31 or whatever.
Literally no change to the way that her like character, like personality or anything develops. Like nothing changes about the way she writes from childhood to adulthood. It sucks. Yeah. It sucks a lot. I hated this one. I actually think that of the 3, this was my least favorite. Yeah. They're pretty close. Do I feel a little bit bad about that? Sure. This is loosely based on Colleen Hoover's actual human lived experience. Yeah. But I just like didn't like it. And it's so many people's like, people cite this as their favorite book. And I'm like, why? Also, there's a lot of things that are just lame. Like the fact that the main character's name is Lily Bloom and she's like opening a flower shop.
It's like in the selection when it's like America's singer is from America and she sure does sing. I think with this whole like trauma dump type of writing, part of it is like as a reader, I was like, oh, I don't know that I've read a lot of books about domestic assault, right? And so then there's like a level of like, I don't actually know how to write this because this is someone's life or it's a serious topic. And I feel like I need to rate it higher than maybe I would have because it deals with these things. But I feel like the more Colleen Hoover I read, the more I'm like, oh no, this isn't like telling a story about this. This is using this as a plot device that is used to like make your character seem more deep or more like, ooh, well, you know, he's not just a dick who hasn't dealt with his stuff. He's a dick who hasn't dealt with his stuff, but it's trauma. You know?
I still feel like even though trauma is the central idea of this book, all the other parts around it feel so unrealistic to me that I just like couldn't even get into it. Yeah. For instance, when Lily's opening up her flower shop, her friend Alyssa just walks in off the street and she's like, well, there's a help wanted sign in the window. And Lily's like, how did that get there? Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah. The example in It Ends With Us where I'm like, this didn't need to be like a big trauma dump is actually Atlas's background. It felt like, how do we make this other guy edgy and interesting? And
make him homeless.
Make him homeless. And not to be like, you know, people who are homeless like can't live whatever kind of life, but like it's used as a plot device in this book for sure. I just think in general, she gives all her characters these really traumatic backgrounds so that you're like, oh, I actually can't dislike this character because they have trauma, even though they're terrible.
I actually don't know that any of the characters in any of the 3 books that we've read I like at all. At all. The one thing that I liked about It Ends With Us is the cover. Yeah. End list. The title of the book is a spoiler. I mean, that's the whole point of the book. Yeah. It's like this generational abuse ends with us.
But it's a romance.
So rating wise, you generally thought that this was your favorite of the 3. Yeah. What would you...
It's still like maybe a 3-star. TLDR, probably like a 2.75, but I'll round up for the sake of rounding.
I think for me it's like a 2.
Yeah.
Next up, we read Verity by Colleen Hoover, which is slated as a thriller. This is another one that we read last year.
Yeah, with book club.
With book club. This was one that we chose because it was hugely popular. It's still hugely popular.
Yeah, but it was like at its...
It was blowing up. It clocks in at 336 pages, and all 336 of them are bad. I had the highest hopes for this one because I love thrillers.
Yes.
Let me tell you about it. Lowen Ashley is our main character. She is a ghostwriter. New York City is where she is from. That's very, very typical of trendy little small potatoes authors.
Yeah.
She gets asked to finish a very popular series by an author named Verity Crawford, who has been in an accident. She's totally immobilized, in a coma. So she was like, okay, this is a high pressure gig. I'm gonna like go to their house. I'm gonna sift through all of her manuscripts and do like a lot of research first. While I'm there, I might as well just stay at that house. While I'm there, I might as well commit the most unethical crime against man and have sex with Verity's husband, like while she's zonked out. All things considered though, I think this one conceptually is the best.
I think I would
executed the worst.
Yes. It's the one I was most excited about because the idea could be really cool.
Oh, so
the
cool.
idea of like, is Verity conscious? Like whatever. The issues come in of like, so if she's in a coma, has no one confirmed it?
It just doesn't make any sense.
Like you could be like,
that's exactly right.
yeah, because you have human reactions to things. You can't just be like,
Anyway, the unfolding of the story shows us that Verity is like, in fact, fine, question mark?
Yeah.
So fine that she's like creeping around the house in the night and she's like watching this relationship unfold between ghostwriter Lowen and Verity's husband, Jeremy. There's also one surviving child. Verity and Jeremy had 3 kids together, twins, and then a little boy as well. Only the little boy is still alive.
Remains.
To me, reading this one, he's like classic horror movie, the haunted child in the house who draws pictures of demons.
I think like this is one in particular where I'm like, wow, Colleen Hoover is really just like trauma dumping on me so that I don't even know how to respond to things. Like it opens up with the most graphic car crash for no reason. It has nothing to do with the plot.
It shocked me right away and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like this book because if a thriller starts like that, I'm like, okay, this is obviously like a tie-in to something.
It's not.
Completely irrelevant to the story.
Yeah.
Why do you pop someone's head for no reason?
Literally so gross.
Sense.
And even like the manuscripts that Verity has written are like so graphic. There was a point in the book where Lowen is like, I'm so over reading about like sex with Jeremy. And I was like, me too, dude. Colleen Hoover was like self-aware enough to be like, is this too much? Probably.
The manuscripts are basically like a combo platter of just sex with her husband and then just like really graphic, horrible acts. She like chokes out her baby.
Yeah.
I feel like this is another moment where it's like literally rolling a dice being like, hey, like what traumatic event? Oh, like
what's a bad thing I haven't written yet?
Like, oh, 18, baby murder. Okay. I truly think that Colleen Hoover has like a baby killing hang.
Maybe she has like a bad event generator. I think with this book, like it ends with us. It ends with the question of, are these manuscripts real or were they like a writing exercise, like this antagonistic writing?
Yeah.
Our book club got really into like, is it real? Is it not real? Who's reliable? And I was like,
I don't care. It's bad either way.
Either way, I hate all 3 of these characters.
I just can't even imagine like the ethical implication of like, imagine you're hired to do a job. Imagine you're a small potatoes person. Are you getting me a small potato? Get out! Imagine though, imagine that you are like trying to make it in the world as an author. Stephen King calls you up and is like, hey, you have a similar writing style.
And he has a hot wife.
I can't even imagine you get that job and then you like go to the house and you're like, yeah, this job's really important to me, but like Jeremy's dick though.
Also, the fact that she lifts her hips to become pregnant. I was like, no. Goodbye. That's not how bodies work. Was Colleen Hoover like the gravitational formula? Science rules.
So, I mean, you guys can tell me if you're team manuscript or team whatever, but regardless, bad. I started the book with really high hopes, and I was like, you know what? Maybe thrillers are like Colleen Hoover's lane.
Yeah.
This is much more interesting to begin with and less juvenile feeling than it ends with us.
That's what I was going to say. The one thing that I feel with this book is that the writing itself, maybe not like the plot, maybe not whatever, but like literal sentence structures and word choices are better than the other 2 books.
Yeah, I agree. But still, made me want to throw up a lot of the time. It was horrible. So we find out in the epilogue that she comes back, finds this manuscript in the floor where Verity's like, I'm alive. She's like, this was all just like a writing exercise if you ever find this, because Jeremy tried to like plot to kill me.
Yeah. Who cares?
Like, I was so angry by that point. I was like, how could this book get worse?
All of these characters could just die and I'd be like, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Good ending. The actual epilogue is that I enter the book and I blow up their house.
Maybe Verity is my least favorite of the three. I don't know.
Verity is my least favorite. I'd say it's like a 1.5 for me.
Maybe a 2 for me as well.
Maybe.
You know what? We can call this one a 1.5.
Yeah, because 1 is, I have questions mainly why, which is how I feel about the book.
Yeah, that is how I feel about the book too. Okay, so let's say 1.5. 1.5 exploded heads.
1.5
for no reason.
Choking babies.
Ugh. Book 3.
You just finished it.
I did. I did just finish it. I actually woke up very early this morning, an hour before my husband, to try to finish it. I'm trying to think of like other things that I would prefer to do at like 7 o'clock in the morning than read a Colleen Hoover book. Like maybe like a colonoscopy or like...
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. That's it, I guess. Wake up and like juice myself some celery juice or something.
Throw back to your celery juice face.
That was short-lived. Okay? Ugly Love, most recently read.
We sure did read that book. Ugly Love. It is 318 pages, and this one is a romance, but it still sucks. So this book follows Miles and Tate, and we again see dual timeline, because every single Colleen Hoover book is dual timeline.
I don't hate a dual timeline book.
I don't either.
In general.
My issue with Colleen Hoover's dual timelines is that she can't just write a normal dual timeline. She has to have like a cool twist. Woo.
Yeah.
Current timeline follows main character Tate. She's moving in with her brother, I think, to go to school. Yeah. She's going to school. She's apparently very busy and she's studying so much and she's working so much, but we never see that. We're just told that she's doing this.
Like, she never talks about anything other than Miles.
The love interest who lives across the hall. He and Corbin and all these boys are pilots. She kind of ends up in like, I don't even want to say friends with benefits. It's just people with benefits.
Yeah.
Just benefits. She gets dental.
She gets something in her mouth.
Miles is a hella edgelord, and he's like, I have 2 rules. Don't ask about the past, and don't expect a future. Okay, man, calm down. From the beginning, he's very like, this is benefits only. We are only having sex, never have feelings ever. And she's like, okay, but in her mind, she's like,
right away.
Immediately, she's like, I gotta have feelings. And then throughout the book, she's like, oh, I think maybe I
can't handle it after all. And I was like, there was never one single point where you were like, I can handle it.
Yeah.
The way that it's narrated, you hear her thought, right? And her thought immediately is like, this is not gonna work.
Yeah. Throughout the book, she's like, I thought this could work. I'm like, no, you didn't. Don't lie to me. You're lying to yourself.
Yeah, I felt gaslit.
They like kind of had this relationship going, and that's really the entire current plot. Past timeline is a Life with Derek fan fiction. It's true. So the past timeline is from Miles' point of view, and he meets this girl Rachel at school, and he's like, Rachel, I love you. You see like Miles' dad brings home his new like lady friend, and lady friend's daughter is Rachel. They have a moment where they're like, well, that sucks. I thought we could date, but we can't date.
Wouldn't that be nice if the story ended there?
Oh my god. And then they're like, what if we did date?
So they like lock the doors all the time. They're like smooching in the house all the time. They're like allowing themselves. I think their initial plan is that it's gonna be no penetration. No penetration, no peen.
0 peen.
0 peen.
They're like, no, we're not going to. And then one day he's like in the shower and she's like, neat, me too. And then they smash rule number 2 is literally what the direct quote is. And it's like, my annotation there is literally asterisk vom. Anyway, past Miles knocks up Rachel in their shower experience. They decide they're gonna move out. They're like, we don't care. We're keeping this baby. She has the baby and they are leaving the hospital and they get in a car crash. Miles saves Rachel and isn't able to save their baby.
I just want to tell you that that's where I was earlier today in your living room. So like that's how much I had to read left of the book.
That's
literally an hour ago. That's where I was like, are you kidding me? They're like yeeted into a lake and then he's, oh my gosh.
That's why the cover's
right. And that's, literally, right as it happened, I was like, oh, that's why it's water.
Wow.
And then I'm like, oh, Colleen Hoover's so clever with all of her water tie-ins. I'm a puddle. Oh, like.
This is then why Miles is like so edgelord. He's like, if I fall in love again, I'm gonna kill my baby again. He eventually like goes and meets up with Rachel, who's like married and has a baby herself.
Well,
and he's
because
like,
the elevator captain is like, you should confront your past if you want a future.
yeah, and then he's like, okay, and he goes and he's suddenly healed, and then they get married and live happily ever after.
There's way more to it than that. But
yeah, but that's like the
like how
notes.
Rachel named her baby, the name that they chose together. Like, I just think that's so wonky. He was like, I want to go see Rachel and like see that she's like moved on and has been able to find love and is happy. And I'm like, you find her with a new man, and them together have named their mutual baby the name
that you chose when you were 18. It could have been any relationship that he had this baby. Like, it was not actually critical to the plot that it was his stepsister. It was just, it felt like something done just to be like edgy. Like, he could have had like a teenage pregnancy where he lost the baby, and it would have had the same impact without making me constantly want to throw up.
Yeah.
So
I have a lot of thoughts.
Yes.
Everyone in this book is really immature.
Yes.
Knowing we were doing this episode, I tried to go in with like an open mind to reading this book. A lot of people were like, oh, Ugly Love's the worst of them, right? I mean, Instagram would disagree because I was like, oh, I hate that I have to read this book. But I did honestly try to like go into it and be like, you know, okay, let's try to see some of the good things as well.
Yeah.
And I do have some good things.
Okay.
I actually think compared with some other very popular authors of this time, Colleen Hoover is not the worst at writing smut scenes.
That's true.
I didn't find them to be super nauseating, apart from some times where he's just railing her really hard for no reason.
Yeah.
Why? Also, during their very last rendezvous, when he calls her Rachel and she's like,
just finish.
Just finish. And they keep going until
I would be like,
literally
no access.
Oh my
Goodbye.
gosh.
I think this is the worst written of the three.
Interesting.
In how it's written.
Okay.
The past POV is center aligned, which just like gives me a formatting ick that I can't shake. You're not edgy. It's supposed to be because Rachel like brought poetry into his life, but like it's not poetry. It's just literally a paragraph split weirdly. I really had issues with the fact that Colleen Hoover uses the word invade a lot.
All the time. She uses infiltrate often as well.
Miles is in my mouth. He's invading me again. I shut the mind drawer and get out of my head and come back to him. Invade me, invade me, invade me. She does this a lot where she'll say a word and then she's like, line, 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 and it's the same thing over and over again. Also, anytime Miles says any amount of words, he could be like, I drank juice today. She'll be like, I drank juice today. My new 4 favorite words. I drank juice today. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How many times do you need to say the same thing? You said it's giving, I need more words in my essay.
Literally. Like,
was it the blue eyes?
yes. Frick. They are the clearest blue eyes I've ever seen. Not at all the heavy-lidded bloodshot eyes from last night. His eyes are so light blue, they're almost colorless. I continue to stare at them, half expecting to see waves if I look closely enough. I'd say they were as clear blue as the waters of the Caribbean, but I've never actually been to the Caribbean, so I wouldn't know. Like how is this relevant? His eyes were blue.
His eyes are firm like his voice was. They're also hard like metal. It's like, oh, they're hard and they're firm. Wow.
Wow. You could be this length instead.
Oh,
you know?
You could be
a novella.
this length.
Consider not existing at all.
It felt very juvenile in how it's written. There's like a lot of things that are only introduced for the sake of like, oh no, things have become stagnant and I need to push things forward. At no point in this book does Tate ever have friends or actually go to school to study, except for when she one time has a boy over to study and Miles loses his mind. And literally that's the only time he's ever mentioned. And she's like, we've been friends for quite a while at school. I'm like, have you?
At that point in time in the book, I was like, trying to...
It's like 3/4 of the way into the book.
You told me about the Bechdel test when we were doing Every Summer After.
Yeah.
So now I've been trying to kind of like look at books with that lens.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, an opportunity for Tate to have a conversation with another woman.
To have any other woman in this book.
Right? I'm like, you've spent the time to tell me that like Tate is studying to
She's
a nursing
doing her
student.
master's of nursing and she's working as like a
You know, you're taking the opportunity to tell me that she's like a boss babe, like she's hardworking, whatever. There's literally never any exploration of that. Yeah. I was would say of all of the characters in the book, our main character is the least mature.
Yes. The only times we see her actually pursuing, like, studying in that is, again, a plot device to get her into Miles' apartment, because he's like every Colleen Hoover man. Immediate red flags. He shows up super drunk. Whatever, you can kind of forgive him for that. But the next day, he's like standing outside her bedroom door, which is creepy as hell. And then there's like watching a football game or something, and he's like, no, like, go to my apartment. I'm not going to allow you to stay here while we're all here. And I'm like, you met her yesterday.
One of the strangest things that I was just like, I don't know why this even needed to be in the book, is every so often, have you seen the show You?
No.
He's like a stalker.
Yes, I understand the premise of You.
He's like narrating, right? So often, from Miles' perspective, he's like, you're gonna fall in love with me, Rachel.
You're gonna fall in love with me, Rachel. You're gonna fall in love with me, Rachel. You're gonna... I'm like, and I freaking get it.
It's also like so creepy.
Yes.
Do people think like that?
There's this running thing with orange juice.
Weird.
Everything's
Yes,
so
the
weird.
orange juice thing.
So she goes to study at his apartment. She says, sorry, I mutter. I was thirsty. He turns to face me and leans his shoulder into the refrigerator, folding his arms over his chest. I don't care if you drink my juice, Tate. Oh, wow. That was an oddly sexy sentence. She's like...
The juice thing kind of reminded me of the Ellen thing. I go like, why? The story would have been unchanged without these factors that are stupid, that just make it more juvenile.
Yeah. So then there's like a point where he puts orange juice in his fridge because he knows she's gonna be like studying there or something. And she's like, he's so thoughtful. I'm like, this is literally the one whole thing he knows about you. So like, is it thoughtful? Did he just still have this orange juice from last week when you were here? It's not that deep, sister. Like,
well, she's looking for anything to cling to.
There's not one of these 3 books where I ship anyone. I ship everyone with therapy. The end.
Imagine being Ian. Ian is the best friend to Miles. Ian has been there through the whole thing, has witnessed this hugely traumatic event in Miles' life.
Yeah.
Imagine being the best friend and being like, hey, you should seek some professional help for this really traumatic thing that you've gone through.
Yeah.
And then he gets so mad at him at the end of the book. He's like, you've been a walking zombie for the last 6 years. And it's like,
what have you done? Also,
like,
Ian.
Tell him to go to therapy, dude. Like, is the solution that you're just never gonna love anybody ever again in your whole entire life?
Yeah, that's literally his solution.
Why is there no representation of like dealing with your mental health issues?
At least not in coho books.
Oh my gosh.
All of these have like a I can fix him energy and like a I'm gonna pick up the pieces of these broken men, I'm gonna put them together. And I think like at the end of the day, having these books be like the most popular books right now. Like Colleen Hoover has like 6 out of the 10 top best-selling books of last year. Having those be like what's really popular and what is like in the view of people who are young readers and like picking stuff up, I worry for like...
Yeah, you're like, I have questions about humanity.
Yeah, and well, I just have like concerns about like, you know, if I read these books in high school, I think I would have loved them. I would have been like, these are so deep. Broken people need me to come fix them. That would be what I would take out of this book as a high schooler, for sure. Like, this is not me projecting, this is me having like read books and had that
and just being like self-aware of what you would have resonated with.
And so I worry about people who are picking up these books at like younger ages and people who are like younger and want to read the cool popular books that everyone are reading. This is a romance. This is so romantic to pack your trauma down so deeply that you literally are just like, I'm just gonna rail you mindlessly and then be terrible to you.
And then when he finally is like, Tate, I want to tell you that I like the color green. This is my favorite food. And she's like,
that's the
wow, this is so romantic. And it's
basic
like
communication.
That should be your baseline.
Yeah, you can tell your best friend your favorite color, or like I could walk out there and like yell on the street like, my favorite color is yellow.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter.
It's and she's like, she feels so let in because he's finally like
given her the like bare minimum,
the tiniest nugget of information about himself, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so problematic.
It's really damaging.
Primed her, damaging. He's primed her to expect very little. Yeah, they're all bad. When I read Colleen Hoover books, I feel like I could be a writer.
There's better romance books, there's better contemporary books, there's better thrillers.
There's better representation of really horrible things.
There's better representation of like people of color and other like sexual orientations. Like these books are so lacking in characters and character development and just like even like Verity.
Is there any person of color in any of the books? I'm thinking now. Everybody in Ugly Love is white, right?
Yeah.
You have this one moment where they're like, Corbin is like, oh, I thought that you were gay. But that's like the only
time anything is ever mentioned.
So what would you rate it?
It's a 2. That was a book.
I would give this one maybe a 2.5, but again, I'm not that far removed from it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. They're all pretty low.
Yeah.
Of the three, I would say my experience reading this one was the most palatable of the three.
It is palatable because it's written in such a juvenile way.
It's fast.
It takes no brain, like no processing to read, because it's just like, he has blue eyes. His eyes are so blue. His eyes are blue like the ocean, but I haven't seen the ocean, but they're very blue. That's the book.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very easy to read. Like you were saying, doesn't really give you anything to think about apart from, is this a damaging narrative? Like all of these books, are they damaging? But apart from that, it's like, it's not like I'm confronted with anything as I read them. I will never give her another $1, I don't think. I just think they're problematic. And I really do think like Colleen Hoover sits on her pile of money and is like, what can I pull out of like the trauma bag today in order to like make my next like $1 million?
Yeah, it feels like her writing almost feels manipulative to the reader of like, I'm going to make you feel really sad or really angry so that you have strong feelings about this book and you don't actually like look at the writing and look at the characters because there's so much trauma that you can't even like process those other parts of it.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, like it makes you want to give it a higher star rating because you're like, how could I possibly give it a low star rating if it's about all these like serious horrible things? Every single one of these books, if I'm not mistaken, there's like a pregnancy trope. There's a
There sure is.
I guess a baby is actually had, and it ends with us by both the main character and by the sister. Is there not? I guess she missed the baby killing
checklist. Well, you haven't read It Starts With Us yet.
That's true. That's true. Communicate better.
Go to therapy.
Take care of your mental health.
He is not worth it.
Stop writing these books, Colleen. My gosh.
So, the same way I'm not going to read any more ACOTAR books because I just didn't enjoy them. I'm not going to read any more Colleen Hoover. It would take a move of God to convince me to read another
God is not in these books.
I need to repent.
Yeah, I don't like them.
Those were
books.
books.
At all. Those were books.
And we read them. So you don't have to. Or you can, if you really
A real sacrifice from all those trees, I would say.
Yeah, honestly.
If you're still here and you really love Colleen Hoover, like, I feel mad. I feel mad about the fact that some of these books conceptually, I'm like, this sounds like really cool, right? Somebody else write them.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
That maybe like leads me to ask if you've read any books that are conceptually similar to these three. And
particularly
you're like,
Verity.
I would say Verity especially. I've heard Wife Upstairs is close, but maybe not.
I didn't love Wife Upstairs, but it was better. It was just like, I feel like it was a bit of a slog.
A bookend to the Colleen Hoover thing. They're just not the right books for us.
Yeah. If
you really love them,
great. So glad that you.
We don't agree with you.
Yeah.
but like, you know, that's kind of the beauty of reading,
yeah.
right? Is there's never going to be enough time to read all the books that we like want to read in our life. And so it's like, if this hits the spot for you, like, I'm so glad that you enjoy reading like we enjoy reading.
Yeah.
And it's like just a real different vibe.
Yeah. If you like Colleen Hoover, great. I'm happy that you found something you connect with. Happy that that's for you. Not for us.
If Colleen Hoover is the author that you found that like makes you sit down and read for hours at a time, like that's awesome.
That all being said, I do challenge people to be critical in what they're reading. There is like a level of like, I read lots of romance books that are just like romance books and you read them for fun and whatever, but especially when you're reading books about like serious topics, I think we need to be critical of authors and how we're representing those serious things, how we're representing people
and relationships.
Yeah.
But from two people that are like in relationships with really, really good men, I would challenge you to set your bar higher than this. than
knowing his favorite cover.
Any of these three books.
Yeah.
Relationships, like love can be ugly, but like it also is like not always.
And like love can be
ugly.
I was gonna say love can be challenging, love can be complicated, love can be worth fighting for, but if like
there's things that you don't need to tolerate.
Yeah.
And so I know. Yeah. We have so many thoughts. We could literally talk about this for hours.
Do you have any reading plans coming up?
I'd like to finally read Red Queen, because that was one that I started and like had to kind of put on hold for some other planned reading.
Yeah.
Apart from that, no, I don't think I have anything in the immediate future apart from things that we
Yeah, have
maybe
fun.
want to do for our channel, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish A Conjuring of Light, and then I'm gonna read Once Upon a Broken Heart, and then probably Legends and Lattes. I'm kind of in a fantasy vibe right now.
I hope you love Legends and Lattes the way that I did.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for watching.
Subscribe,
Comment,
like. Are there other
notify. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Write a pigeon carrier about us.
Oh, that would be so nice.
Yeah.
Fax us.
We don't have a fax machine, but fax us.
We'll
anyway.
get a fax number if you want it.
We'll get a P.O. box.
Ooh, what is that?
We love you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Mwah. I pull him back to my mouth. He doesn't kiss me back right away because he doesn't know what to think about what just happened. His mouth catches up pretty quickly though. I think he hated my clipped response as much as I hated his, and now he's using his hands to get his own revenge. I can't tell where he's touching me, because as soon as he touches me in one spot, his hands move to another, and I just imagine he's like, woo.
Do you remember this part of the book where he is like, I wasn't always a good kisser. I used to kiss like this, and then he like is like bleh, into her mouth, and she's like, yeah, that is bad.
There's no God in Verity.